Commissioners, we've had a storm this week, and we thought you would be interested in knowing some of the details about it. So I recognize Eddie Black for that.
Not just a storm. This is one of the most significant ice storms in KUB history. Matter of fact, I've been here long enough to remember some other significant ice storms, like the one back in 1982 and 1994. And I can never remember such a sustained, prolonged period of freezing rain that occurred, followed by the bitter cold temperatures that we have right now. So what I'm going to do today is just give you a brief summary of how we prepared for the event, and how we responded to the event, and how we will be responding in the next several days to other impacts on our utility system. Before I get into that, though, I'd like to say a couple of words about this picture. This is one of our young line workers, Justin Humphrey. He's been with KUB about 4 years now, so he's getting his first experience with an ice storm, kind of a trial by fire. This was taken Tuesday morning up on Smith School Road. That's in the East Knox County area near the Sevier County line. And this just, I think, exemplifies the kind of conditions they were working under. And earlier, Chair Thompson used the word awesome to describe the job they did, and I can't think of a better word. And I think you'll see some other slides that will help to make that point as well. We began preparing for the storm last week when the initial models came out, the weather forecast models. They were literally and figuratively all over the map. Some forecasts were calling for a moderate to heavy snow event. Some were saying chance of ice storm, some saying miss us entirely. And we also didn't know when exactly we'll be hitting. As the forecast started firming up, though, we became concerned about the possibility of an ice storm and the extended cold temperatures. So we entered into a formal planning phase Sunday. Sunday afternoon, sent the word out authorizing our incident command structure and notifying the KUB employees who were going to be involved in that we needed to meet at 6 a.m. Monday morning. And so they did get together at that time to start the detailed planning. At that time, this is a forecast model from 7:30 a.m. Monday morning. Jury was still kind of out on the significance of the ice event. This is something that shows the probability of ice accumulations of a 1/4 inch or more. And you can see that Knoxville is right in the 40 to 50% range. So we weren't sure exactly what was going to happen. So we decided to err on the side of caution, recognizing that even if heavy ice didn't fall, there would still be enough on the roads to prevent us from responding quickly in the remote sections of our system. So what we did was staged KUB and contract crews throughout our distribution system, even arranged for some of them to spend the nights in hotels, if need be, to keep them from having to go back and forth on the slick roads and take the time away from the restoration effort and driving back and forth to KUB headquarters. We also, as we've done before, transitioned the entire organization into storm support mode. This included closing the branch offices, and of course we did that for weather-related reasons the first couple of days, but also to provide more people in our phone center. We also suspended the non-payment cutoffs during that time as well. As we typically do, we plan our storm-related communications as well. This begins with the KUB storm page. This is at the www.kub.org site. You can see that it comes up with an outage map. This gives anyone who comes to our web page just a very clear idea about how significant the event is. They can see all the outages out there. They can see people around them and how they're affected as well. We also began issuing media advisories on Monday morning and did that every few hours throughout the storm, and are still continuing to do that. We activated all of our social media, started the communications to all the employees affected by this, because people weren't doing their normal jobs. They were supporting the storm response effort however they could. And then finally, this is not something we do every storm, but the significance of this storm, we thought it would be a good idea to have a news conference. So we had that on Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. With Chief Operating Officer Bill Elmore and Incident Commander Gabriel Bolas talking at the news conference. The precipitation started midday Monday. As you're aware, for several hours the system wasn't affected at all. But then around dusk, the ice accumulations built up on the trees to such an extent that around dark, outages started happening rapidly. And so we had to start responding to the storm in the dark. And even in the best circumstances, night work is less efficient than day work, even under ideal conditions, and these conditions were, as you can see, far from ideal. Our crews were having to deal with downed trees, freezing rain still continuing to fall, icy roads, and temperatures in the 20s. And so they were out in the middle of that. In some cases, they were even having to clear the roads of trees just to get to the damaged spots before the city or the county or Department of Transportation could get out and help us with that effort. So the job performed by these guys was truly heroic, not just that night, but throughout the storm restoration effort. The hard work paid off. We reduced it from a high of around 21,000 to about 13,000 by Tuesday morning. And once daylight broke, we could get a clear idea of what was the root cause of a lot of the problems. That's trees becoming top heavy because of the ice accumulation and dropping heavy branches on top of the lines or even falling on the lines themselves. This was we became aware that this was kind of a unique storm also in that we continued to have damage even after the weather system had passed. There were several incidents where our crews would come to a site, repair the lines, restore service, and then be called back to the same area an hour or two later when another branch or another tree in that same area fell on the same lines, just undoing what they had repaired earlier. That was one unique aspect. Another was the fact that it was just so widespread. You know, hit our entire service area, so we were having to respond all over the service area. Because of this, at the news conference that we had on Tuesday, we announced that it would be a multi-day event. We said that we were aiming for Wednesday midnight to have a substantial recovery of service throughout the system. So by Wednesday morning, we had around 3,400 out. We had 7 new crews, bringing the total number of crews to around 67, and we're poised to meet that Wednesday midnight goal. Unfortunately, we had a lot of high winds. If you were out yesterday at all, you know the gusting winds that we had yesterday afternoon created 7,000 new outages on top of what we had. So the crews fought that down, and by close of business yesterday around 5 o'clock, we had about 2,200 outages, but that did delay somewhat the recovery effort. This is a chart that shows how the outages occurred from the start of the event. This is around 5 o'clock on Monday. You can see how quickly they ramped up during Monday night, and then we started working it down. There were kind of stops and starts as we go down through here, but you can really see the impact of Wednesday afternoon's new outages right here with the heavy winds. If it had been for that, I'm confident we could have met the goal. Not only this chart, but so many people now use our outage map that I referred to earlier. So what we've done is we've done a time lapse of 64 hours worth of outage maps into the next 30 seconds. So don't blink when I finish this thing here. We can go over it again. But this starts at about 5 p.m. Monday and goes through about 6 o'clock this morning to give you an idea of how the outages took place over our system. See, this is about midnight on Monday. This is around 8 p.m. Tuesday. Into Wednesday, you can see that they start to go down and they ramp up again on Wednesday afternoon. And this final one shows about 6 o'clock this morning. And I pulled up a map. This one, Kelly Lane, pulled this up 11:23, just right before the board meeting today, to kind of show you where we are right now. It shows at 288. And through the magic of mobile technology, sitting next to Phil Elmore, I found out that we're down to 203 right now. So 200 right now. Oh, 200. Very good, real-time information. So we sent out the last meeting, or the most recent media advisory around 11 o'clock today, and anticipated that we'd be able to have everyone substantially back in service by later this evening. This is the time in an outage presentation where I normally say that we were able to do this safely with no injuries. Unfortunately, I'm not able to say that this time. Due to the very extreme conditions that our workers were in the last few days, we did have some injuries on this one due to trips, or slips rather, on the ice. One was just kind of a first aid kind of thing. Two others required trips to the emergency room. One of these gentlemen was treated and released immediately. The other had to stay overnight for observation, but we just found out right before the meeting that he's being released today and will be able to return to duty tomorrow with no restrictions. But from a safety standpoint, this will, of course, increase our metrics by one. It will be a dark, kind of a lost time incident. In addition to the ice storm impact on our infrastructure, there are other impacts as well. You may recall that almost exactly a year ago, when the polar vortex came through, we had to interrupt our interruptible gas customers. We're having to do the same thing this time. Yesterday was our third highest gas throughput day in our history, and so we contacted our around 35 curtailment customers yesterday and notified them that they would be curtailed starting at 10 a.m. today. That is going on right now. We told them to plan for a day or two. We'll be meeting this afternoon to decide whether we need to extend that onto tomorrow or not. We also are monitoring the TVA power supply. They gave us a heads up earlier on that they could have record high consumption just based on their models. That has not happened yet, but you may remember that last year, also during the polar vortex, had the first ever TVA interruption, or of their winter interruption of their customers. So we're monitoring that closely as well. Another thing that we're planning on is the increased probability of water main breaks. In the February board presentation a year ago, we showed you this chart. And what that showed is what had happened in January. In the February presentation, we showed you what had happened the previous month. And this shows the correlation between the temperatures. This is seen on the red line here. These are the daily low temperatures. And the increase in water main breaks. So instead of a historic perspective, we're looking at it as a predictive perspective this time around. We will have increased water main breaks as the temperatures stay low. And steps are being taken right now to prepare for that, as far as staffing up 12-hour shifts and this type of thing to get ready for that. So that's where we are right now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
When you were showing that last chart of today, basically the numbers, 200, maybe a little bit higher, would those, in all probability, be people whose outages didn't occur on Monday or early on Tuesday, but would have occurred maybe in yesterday's?
That's entirely possible with the nature of this storm. And one of the things that also went out in the media advisory at 11 today was that we have a priority of working these things. One of the key priorities at this point in the restoration effort is to focus on those that have been out the longest.
The two green dots, the one that's higher is 91 customers. The lower one is 50 plus customers, and both of those are new. They haven't been over there, but they were last night, late yesterday afternoon, the lower one, and the other. So that's 150 brand new people out.
Yeah, one of these in particular had, I think, 4 poles down and 7 spans of wire. The lower one, so that's a big job that they're working on.
What's the average time for you now? Has it been as long as a day, or?
Yeah. You want to tell her about the guy in Granger County? We had a guy way up here in Granger County. He was the first black dot. And then yesterday Bill said, he's been out. He was the first one out. He needs to get back in. So this morning when I came in, that dot isn't there anymore. So, we hate for the first one out to be the last one restored. So So some have been out a couple of days.
How is our customers responding as far as calling in? How did,
Well, over the last 3 days, we've handled 35,000 calls. Typically in a month, we'll have 60 to 70,000. So in a matter of days, we've processed half of our monthly total. One of the things we did, we have about 110 customers who have been out for more than the day, and we proactively called them and assured them, you know, you're out. Made them aware of any sort of Red Cross facilities, churches, and we have talked to them the last couple of days, and we're calling them again today. And hey, barring any unforeseen weather activity, you'll be back on today. And it seems those outbound calls seem to really make a difference, because you're calling them before they're sitting there and kind of ready to call you, so.
Also on customers, one thing that I would ask you to do if you have an opportunity is to look at the Facebook site. On our outage map page, we have the upper left-hand corner, we have storm photos. If you click on that, it shows a bunch of photos like I showed earlier. We started posting those Monday night into Tuesday morning. And customers, the response, the comments they make on Facebook comments are just overwhelmingly positive. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you have an opportunity.
And I would just say anecdotally, after storms like this, we typically have people attend our board meeting and express their concerns. They're not here today, so I think we've done a better job communicating as well as restoration.
I think it is pretty powerful seeing those images of the guys up there working in the ice. I mean, it's pretty, I was out driving, I slid all the way down the hill with my son in my car. I'm just thinking about these guys out there with these huge trucks and how scary that must be. It's really impressive. So,
It is to us too.
yeah.
At one point, didn't we talk about, maybe we implemented, but did we talk about where you could get messages from us on your cell phone? You know, do we have that?
We don't use it in the major storms, right, Donna? When it's this big, it's too hard to predict.
Okay.
but they can now pull up everything on their phone and get, I know,
You
I
can
was
pull up
doing
your
that,
own.
yeah, and look and see what's in there.
We
Also, I
have-
was looking at all the news, of course, every time it came on, because I want, and then it would come in and my kids, KUB's on there. But one thing, I think we communicated very well, because people, instead of thinking that it was off, to me, it seemed like there were a couple of events happening, so you knew kind of what was going on, and we communicated well with the public.
Just the general tone and talking to our customers. I think the nature of it with the ice, we're seeing the same thing that Eddie talked about on the Facebook page. Understanding and again, I think it helps that we're contacting them and making them aware that we know you're out and reassuring them, so.
And the staff was there for 16 and 20 hours at a time too, so not just the guys out in there, so thank you all also for being out.
The same people calling who are at home and can't get out or won't get out and go to work or anything.
Yeah.
We're working.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, there is a matter involving pending litigation for the board to discuss with senior staff and general counsel. Can I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? I would now ask the guests to leave the boardroom with the exception of the executive staff. I want to call the board meeting back to order. Is there any other business or comments from commissioners or the public? If there's none, the meeting is adjourned, and the board and staff will have lunch across the hall, and it is open to the public. The meeting is adjourned.